Hi, this is Joseph Lesser. I want to welcome you to this lesson. The contents of this lesson are exactly the same for all these recent versions of Excel. The only differences are in some minor cosmetic changes. I will be using the latest version for this lesson, Excel 2016. A very light creak sound may be used in this recording to help neutralize other naturally occurring noises. You may or may not notice this as you're taking this lesson. In this lesson, I will cover some advanced techniques for working with the Quick Access Toolbar. In another recording on the basic customization of the toolbar, I covered two simple techniques for adding and removing buttons, as well as how to rearrange the buttons on the toolbar. Please view that lesson if those topics are of interest. I will not cover them during this lesson. Also, it may be helpful to print out the free quick reference guide to use during this lesson. This guide and the basic Quick Access Toolbar lesson are available at josephlesser.com. For this lesson, I will focus on using the Excel Options Quick Access Toolbar dialog box. From within this location, you have access to the most powerful options for customizing the toolbar. You will learn how to add any Excel button, as well as remove the buttons and create visual separators. You'll learn how to save the settings that you build, as well as reset the toolbar. And you'll also learn how to add buttons to a specific workbook. Parts of this lesson will be done with a presentation, and in the other parts I will demonstrate all of these techniques in Excel. Here is an image of the Excel Options Quick Access Toolbar dialog box. I will be going into this at length in a few moments. Please observe the title bar says Excel Options, and we are in the category of Quick Access Toolbar. There are two ways to position to this dialog box. You can use the Quick Access Toolbar drop-down arrow and then select More Commands, or you can use the File tab, Options, Quick Access Toolbar to arrive at the same destination. I want to discuss the various regions of this dialog box. I will cover these in more detail in a few moments. This is just an overview. Please bring your attention to the following areas. This box lets you select from the list of categories of buttons. In this example, Popular Commands is the selection. This next area displays the buttons within that selection. These are the buttons that can be added to your Quick Access Toolbar. This region displays the current settings and arrangement of the toolbar. Here are the Add and Remove buttons, and down here you will find the Reset and Import/Export buttons. And lastly, this box lets you specify the location of the buttons to be added, either to the general Quick Access Toolbar for use in all workbooks, or to create buttons for use only in a specific workbook. In the Categories box, you will find several ways that command buttons are organized for your use. In this example, Popular Commands is currently selected. Within this selection, an alphabetized list of buttons is displayed. If you change categories, a different list of buttons will display. In this example, Commands Not in the Ribbon is displayed. Here is a list of buttons in the category called Commands Not in the Ribbon. Here I am in Excel 2016, and I want to talk about advanced customizations of the Quick Access Toolbar. So we're going to get to the dialog box that you saw in the presentation, and one way of getting there is through this drop-down menu and going in through More Commands, and we get to Excel Options, Quick Access Toolbar. I'm going to cancel this and show you another way to get there. You can also go through the File tab, Options, and then go to the category of Quick Access Toolbar. And there we are in the same dialog box. So this is what we're going to be using throughout this particular lesson. So two ways of getting here. And once we're here, there's a couple regions. Over here is where the buttons are located and the categories of those buttons. And over here on the right is the current representation of the Quick Access Toolbar. So first off, I want to start with these categories of buttons up here. I'll click on this drop-down arrow or into the box there, and I see I'm currently have popular commands selected, but I also can see commands not in the ribbon, all commands, macros, and on and on. There are many categories down here, and depending which category you select, different buttons will display. So in popular commands, I get to see this list of buttons here. If I change that to all commands, I see every command available to Excel. If I change it from all commands to just wanting to perhaps look at the buttons that are on or related to the page layout tab, I'll select that and find those particular buttons. So the categories can make life a little easier. It takes a little understanding to figure out how they work, but once you know where a button is, if it's in one of these categories, pick that category so you can find it. I'm going to cancel out of here. Using the Excel Options Quick Access Toolbar dialog box allows you to add buttons to the toolbar. Buttons will be placed at the end of the toolbar unless you indicate a placement ahead of time. To strategically place a button onto the toolbar, select an existing button. The new button will be placed after this selected one. Then, select a button to be added. From here, you can either double-click that button or press the Add button to move it onto the toolbar into position. These buttons can be rearranged with the Move Up or Move Down buttons. This topic is covered in the basic Quick Access Toolbar recording. The same dialog box can be used to remove buttons from the Quick Access Toolbar. Select a button to be removed, then select the Remove button. Using separators can help you to visually organize your Quick Access Toolbar. These can be used to create a small space between groups of buttons. This toolbar has 4 separators. To add a separator, select a button. The separator will be placed after this button. Then select the separator. It's at the top of the list. Now you can either double-click the separator or select the Add button. I want to add some buttons to the Quick Access Toolbar, and I'm going to go into the dialog box through this drop-down menu and more commands. I get back to Excel Options, Quick Access Toolbar, and we talked about these categories up here. I'm going to leave it in popular commands, but there are these other categories, and I see these buttons are available for me to add onto the Quick Access Toolbar, which is represented over here. Now there's 2 ways to add buttons. You can double-click a button. Let me do that first. And the button gets placed in the Quick Access Toolbar. Or you can select a button and then click the Add button. So both of those ways move the button or place a copy of it over onto the Quick Access Toolbar. Now, if you do not select a button ahead of time, the next button you add will be placed at the end. However, if you strategically select a button, let's say I want a button right after Save. For example, I would like to have Save As very close to the Save button. So I'm going to position to the Save button. I'm going to scroll down until I find Save As, and I will double-click it, and it gets placed right after the Save. So if I wanted there to be a button near conditional formatting, maybe some other kind of formatting, Format Painter, I could position and then double-click and add the button that way. So If you select a button ahead of time, the next button will be placed adjacent to that button. So two ways of getting them over there and including positioning ahead of time before you add the button. Now I want to talk about removing buttons. There's two ways to do this too. You could double click a button, which would remove it, or you could click the remove button. So let me double click the conditional formatting. It's removed from the Quick Access toolbar. If I want to remove the format painter, I could double click it or click the remove button. So two ways also of removing a button, double clicking or using one of these buttons here. Let me add a couple buttons so I can show you this next idea. Okay, the next idea is about using this thing called the separator. Now before we do this, let me show you what the current Quick Access toolbar would look like. I'll press the OK button, and there you see my 8 or so buttons up there. Now, when we use a separator, it's going to create a little visual space between buttons. Let me show you what that looks like. I'll go into the dialog box through the File tab, Options, Quick Access Toolbar. And let's say I want there to be a little visual space between Save As and Undo. So I'll click on Save As. I find my way to this thing called the separator. If I double click it or press the Add button, it gets placed right after my selection, just like a button would. And now I have a separator between the Save As and the Undo. Let's have another one right after the redo. There we go. And I'll put one more in after the formatting buttons. Okay, let's see what that looks like. I'll press OK. And there you see a little vertical line and a little visual space between these groupings of buttons. So I think that's a very handy way of helping yourself visually organize buttons. That's called adding a visual separator. The current settings of the Quick Access toolbar can be saved to a file. This file can be used to reestablish the saved settings on this or on another computer. Select the Import/Export button to begin the save process. Then choose Export All Customizations. Note that this file, the one that you're creating, will also save the current ribbon settings. Confirm or provide a file name and location. The saved file can then be used for importing. This involves selecting the Import/Export button as we just did, and then importing the saved file. It's possible to design several Quick Access toolbars, name them differently, and use them for different projects. The Quick Access toolbar can always be reset to its original state. This can be helpful in many situations, especially if you know how to save your customized Quick Access toolbar with the import/export process we just described. To reset, click the Reset button. From there, choose Reset Only the Quick Access toolbar. If the ribbon has been customized, a second option will allow you to reset it as well. Many buttons that you will use belong in use for all your workbooks. However, you may find that working in a particular workbook may be enhanced by providing that individual workbook with extra buttons, buttons that do not need to be displayed for the other workbooks. Let's look at how to accomplish this. In the Customize Quick Access Toolbar dialog box, you can select either for all documents or the specific workbook you are in. Select the specific workbook which is to hold the new selected button. In this example, Annual Budget. Then, the display will change to show only those buttons that are in this specific workbook already, if there are any. From here, you add buttons in the normal way. These changes must be saved with the workbook. If you use this technique, the workbook buttons will display to the right of the standard Quick Access toolbar. I want to talk now about saving the settings of the Quick Access toolbar. So previously we've customized this toolbar, and it's possible you might like to save those settings. So if something else happens to the toolbar or if it gets reset, you can bring these settings back into the game. So let's go back into the dialog box, Quick Access Toolbar dialog box that is, and let's talk about this button here, Import Export. So you've by this point in time already have rearranged the buttons and have created the toolbar that you'd like to save. When you want to save it, you'll click this button, Import Export, and after clicking it, you'll then select Export, which is equivalent to saving. And once we're here, we are brought to the Save dialog box where we get to give it a name and a location. We can change the folder location, but I'm going to leave it where it is. That works for me. And I'm going to call this my Annual Budget Quick Access Toolbar. Maybe I use it once a year for the annual budget, and I like to have all these tools for it, something like that. Okay, so I've got it saved in a file name. So that's pretty easy. You, again, click the Import Export, go into Export, give it a file name and a location. Now this file can be used on this very same computer, or it can be brought to another computer where these settings will be available for anybody else to use. Please note that the settings that are saved are the customizations to both the Quick Access Toolbar and the ribbon if you've modified that. Having saved this, I think it's a good time to talk about resetting. So right now, the Quick Access Toolbar looks like these buttons. If I press Reset, and I reset all customizations, I get the confirmation question. It will replace the previous ribbon and other Quick Access Toolbar customizations. I'll say yes. And there we see Quick Access Toolbar has been set back to its original. I press OK. It looks that way right up here. Again, I'll go back into the dialog box. So we exported and we reset. Let me quickly show you how to import. It's very easy. You click on this Import button. You select Import, and it brings you to a folder location. Now, if you've saved it to a different folder or onto a thumb drive or some other place on the network, you'll just find your way to that. And you want that settings file saved and brought back into the game. Find it, select it, press Open, and it will replace whatever's currently in the game. And there you have the previously saved Quick Access Toolbar is now imposed onto my Excel. Let me press OK, and there you see it's come back. Now I want to talk about adding a button to a specific workbook. So this workbook is called Annual Budget. This is my, let's call it the standard Quick Access Toolbar. It's what's going to show on every single document that I bring up in Excel will show those buttons. But if I want to add a button that only shows up in this particular workbook, that's another area of that dialog box I want to introduce you to now. So I'm going to click again this drop down arrow, go into More Commands, and we see the buttons over here in the current Quick Access Toolbar over here, and this is the region I want to bring your attention to now. The last region we haven't gotten to. The default is, as you see, for all documents, meaning the standard Quick Access Toolbar. However, if you click in here, you'll also see that an option exists to select the workbook that you're in. And this current workbook has no particular buttons associated with it at this point in time. Well, I'm about to change that. I'm going to add, let's say, a pivot table button and a refresh all button and maybe a merge and center button. Okay, these three buttons are being associated with this workbook. So when I press OK, you'll see these three buttons now appear for this workbook and only for this workbook. The standard toolbar are these buttons, and these are the particular ones for this one workbook. So if I, for example, go into the File tab and create a brand new blank workbook, okay, and you'll see this new workbook, let me maximize it, doesn't have those brand new additional three buttons. If I close this workbook, you see this workbook does. So I'm going to go back through the Annual Budget workbook, back into the Customize area, and instead of working with the normal standard toolbar, I'm going to work with the Annual Budget. And these three buttons are available only for that. Of course, from here I could double click and remove them if I wanted to. Set it all the way back so there are no buttons with. One more thing I want to mention. If you add buttons to a particular workbook, that workbook must be saved after those buttons are added if you want those buttons to remain available for that workbook only. This lesson is completed. Here's a list of the topics we covered. How'd you do? I want these lessons to be the best value for both of us, for you as a learner and for me as a teacher and coach, and I welcome your comments and feedback. Thank you for your support, and please feel free to contact me through josephlesser.com.